Fantasy Football Disciples podcast. Come follow us, and we will take you to the fantasy promised land. Hey, if you didn't check out our last video on quarterbacks, go check it out. This segment, we are going to do running backs. J Money, you got our top 10 list for us. We're going to go through them and talk and discuss.
I tell you what, I got some surprises. I might have some foreign money in mind, even because there's some people on here. They're like, "What are you smoking to have them that low?" And I am going to start off with probably the biggest shock of them all, even though it might not shock everybody at this table. Starting at number 10 is a big name, Zeke Elliott at number 10. Most people have him top 4. Some even have him top 2. But my skepticism, one of his quarterback, who they even going to have for quarterback. 2,
Ezekiel.
And their line is a little bit subject. It's gone down the last 3 to 4 years, and Zeke's health hasn't been the best, and he's not the best pass catcher. So the one thing that I playing in the role, I look at trends. He's getting older, and I just think that this could be the year that there's just enough things going on in Dallas that Zeke is not going to be consistent. Now, he may start off pretty tight, but I just don't see that I would want to spend top 5 money on Zeke Elliott.
Yeah.
What do you guys think?
I have him obviously low, a lot lower on this list than what you do, but I see your logic, and I can see how he falls back. I think, in my opinion, it's all going to depend on if Dak Prescott's healthy. If they have a viable throwing threat back there, where defenses just can't stack the box and know the ball is going to Zeke every single time.
Yeah.
Then
That's a
I
problem.
mean, if they have Dak, then Zeke could very well be a top 3 guy. I mean, just the fact that he gets 300 plus touches a year. I mean, who else in the league gets that much? There's only maybe 1 or 2.
The main thing of it is, the guys have them top 4, top 5, if not higher. I mean, $100 drafts, you're spending 20 plus on a guy. Do you want to spend it? Everybody's injury risk. It's football, but the fact of the nature of it is, some of these other guys know who their quarterbacks are going to be. They're a little bit younger. I just don't know that I would spend over, 15 on Zeke, because I think you could just be losing it.
Yeah, if you draft Zeke, you almost have to get Tony Pollard.
Oh yeah.
Just as an insurance policy. But I agree with you, J Money. Pro Football Focus agrees with you as well. They have him as a number 9.
Wow, looky there.
Wow.
Maybe I need to put in my resume.
I can't put him above 8. I mean, if he falls, if you can get Zeke for $8, why not? But you're not going to get him.
No. Especially not in a draft in our area of the country where
you get
Cowboys
for 15 or 18.
anything under probably 13 in a draft is a steal.
Yeah.
In my mind. I mean, you got to take him there, but anything above 15, man, you're playing a little risk card.
Well, and especially in snake drafts, he's going to be a first round out easily.
Yeah.
And I mean, do I really want to take him over a guy that could boom? Say I have Aaron Jones. That he could be better than him.
Well, if
Jonathan Taylor could be better.
If I'm in a snake draft, I'm taking Najee Harris before.
Yeah, I have. I mean, I think Najee could be a better than him.
Well, let's look at where he'd normally go on a snake. I mean, he's going usually 3, 4, or 5 in a snake. I'd almost rather go Adams. Go to a top wide receiver. And some people say I'm crazy going Kelsey, but he at least is going to be consistent.
Yeah.
And you got a top-notch quarterback throwing to him. That's why Zeke, I would put back end, 11, 12, 15 type in a snake draft.
Yeah, and there's not a lot of green lights with Zeke Elliott.
No.
Everything's working against him. The Cowboys organization, you got quarterbacks up in arms, you got Zeke's physical health, then you got to think about his mental health.
Yeah.
And there's no pro other than the fact that the Cowboys offense looks really good and that he could have some red zone, potential red zone.
Well, the amount of touches he's
Right.
going to get. I mean, that's about the only other thing.
There's a lot of There's a lot of ifs.
There's a lot of
ifs.
ifs, and yeah, and that's why he can't be where you normally put him.
No,
But
I agree.
Yeah.
I agree with you, James.
Well, it's not a big a surprise. Like I said, around this table, we might actually have
mine isn't much lower. I have him. I mean, at 5, which I guess would be kind of lower, but it's not up where some people may have him.
Where'd you have him?
I have him at 5, and that's a Dak Prescott play.
Yeah, I mean, this
I
is
have him
obviously
closer to
subject to
10
change
actually.
during that, but.
If Dak doesn't play like that.
All right, well, number 9, this was a little bit more of a PPR play in my mind, but it had to do more with the potential of their offense and how they're going to not necessarily run the ball a lot, but I think they're going to give Austin Eckler some good volume. I know that they have 2 or 3 other backs with Jackson and Kelly there, so that's going to take a little bit of role. Plus, with his injury last year, I think they're going to be very conscientious of too much volume for him. But I still think he has the capabilities of getting, his points per touch. Let's just put it that way. I think is going to be on the higher end. So Austin Eckler, I have him at 9. I know you always want to say if he can stay healthy, but he does have a little injury bug that tends to play. He's a smaller back. So he's not going to be high volume, just rush, pound the ball guy. But I definitely think that they're going to run a lot of screen play, a lot of over the middle with him. I think he's going to have a pretty good year, more as call it a slot back than it is necessarily as a power running back.
I have him at 12, and I would put him in the top 10 if it was PPR easy.
Yeah.
I think that 9's pretty good spot.
I have him at 10, so we're very close. I think even in PPR, you could have him higher. Just, it depends.
What do you got?
Well, yeah. I think for me, the Chargers offense looks good, and if he's going to be the guy, I think he's a top 10 guy. Pro Football Focus has him at 12, so they have him right there.
Okay.
Sniffing the heels of the other guy.
Now, the next one is officially the only rookie on my list. I actually have Najee Harris at 8.
I agree with you on that one.
I have him
him
at
at 8
9,
overall.
so I'm right around that.
Yeah, I mean, just sheer volume, the way the Steelers are going to have to pound the ball to be successful. Big Ben's old Ben now. They have some wide receivers, but they're not just top 5 caliber wide receivers that they can rely on every single game. I think they're going to have to be extremely successful with Najee, and I think he's a young workhorse that they're going to rely upon. So 8 was, to me, an easy one for him. I know he's not a secret anymore, but it is one that you can see, especially in snake drafts. Some of them he's dropping even to the 3rd round, which is shocking to me. That would, to me, would be a steal. But for us, I think in our draft situation, I think that $12 to $13 range on Najee Harris would be a great buy.
Oh, I would love that. I would eat that up.
Yeah,
Yes.
I think most of us here
He
would.
has the top 5 easiest schedule for running back.
And
so
I
think
think-
that'd be easy.
I think he's probably going to get top 2 or 3 most touches out of the running backs. I mean, he's the only one in here that really isn't in a committee besides Dalvin. And you could almost see even Zeke being in a little bit of a committee with Pollard. So I think that he's just going to be a touch machine.
Plus he gets to play the Bengals twice.
Yeah.
Now, number 7. Again, I'm kind of going back and forth with pass-catching running backs here a little bit, even though I think he is going to share the field at some points. But I have Antonio Gibson at 7. I even thought about putting him a little bit higher just because of his upside. I really think that Fitzmagic's going to like Gibson. I think he's a little bit of sleeper in some leagues, just because he plays for Washington. And his quarterback is just kind of Fitzpatrick. There's nothing glamorous about the Redskins offense or about their team in general. They just kind of flump along. But you got to remember, they were in the playoffs last year. They actually played Tampa Bay extremely well. That game was tight. So Gibson is a running back that I think will do extremely well this year.
I agree with you, Jay Money. Not that I'm surprised you have him in your top 10, because he's in my top 10 in my brain, because I think he's going to be a great potential top 10 running back for good value. So
Very good. I mean, I don't have him at 10. I have him right at probably 11 or 12. He was right next to Austin Eckler to me. I mean, I think they're pretty similar.
Yeah.
But
He's a little bigger.
what threw me off with Gibson is the boomer bust. I mean, the dude last year was pretty much through the roof, almost a week winner. Some weeks, or the next it was just
They were so unstable at quarterback. I mean, look who they had. He's not even playing football. Yeah,
I
that's
mean,
one less deal.
so-
He's so bad. So
and the touchdowns. Those are the only other. That's the only thing that really throws me off. But I think in PPR, he could definitely be in the probably 8 to 10 range, in my opinion. He could even shoot up higher around where you have him. But in standard, I don't like him quite as much as a guy like Eckler, who I have him at 10.
it looks like Cameron had him.
13.
I
I have him there because, I mean, if it was PPR, I would have him top 10, but in standard it's really hard just because he doesn't get a lot of touchdowns.
would you take Eckler over Gibson?
In standard, yeah.
I don't know if I would. I think it's really close.
Well, to me, just the run aspect of it, I think they're going to run Gibson more than they
Well, and they're not even. I don't know that they'll even have Gibson on the field on 3rd downs though, with the kissing out there.
with kids.
So-
You never know, but it all depends, I think, on the day. It'll be interesting, but that's definitely why I only had him 7, because I think
Yeah.
there's not as many mouths to feed in Washington.
On my list it's Eckler at 12 and Gibson 13, so they're pretty much right there.
Yeah, I agree.
Well, and part of it's the Chargers' offense. I think is going to be better consistently more than Washington's
That is
offense. It's just, I think the Chargers have a lot more to play with, so Gibson by default is going to get more of the fantasy volume. So, all right, number 6. This is where we probably have very similar numbers. It's just how it's all shuffled. Again, this was more by their schedule and maybe a little bit about who their backup is in comparison. A little more similarity in backup play. I have Aaron Jones at 6. And part of that is just because you've already mentioned it, Christian, is the fact that his red zone attempts sometimes get a little bit taken. So he's great through the 20s, and then all of a sudden, last year it was Jamaal may come in even for a little bit more power in that end zone and a little bit of play action for Rodgers, aka to pad his stats. So Aaron Jones, again, some things that I've seen from him, and I've said this on our podcast multiple times, if he's not heavily involved in the game early, he falls off the earth. For him, it's mental, in my mind. He has to be the man, the go-to guy, in order for him to be consistent. I mean, you'll see where he's getting 5, and the other games he's getting 35. And that's when he has success early, is when his big points go up.
I have Aaron Jones at 5 and Jonathan Taylor at 6. I like Jonathan Taylor a little bit better than Aaron Jones. However, Jonathan Taylor's going to have to share a little bit with Hines, higher volume.
Yeah, I have.
And you got more than Mac.
I have Jones at 7. I have Jones at 7, and I have Jonathan Taylor at 8. So, I mean, all right around there. Then I just like the guy above Jones just a little bit more.
I have Jones at 4, and I didn't know where Jonathan Taylor is obviously on J Money's, but I have him at 9 just because I just don't appreciate the Colts offense right now, and they're relying on sophomore and rookie quarterbacks. They don't have much of an established wide receiver taking over the game, and their line's blown up with no Quentin Nelson right now, so it's really hard to trust them right now.
Yeah, Quentin Nelson is a big loss, but they're still a top 5.
Well, and I believe he's supposed to be.
He's supposed to come
He's
back.
supposed to be there at week 1.
Yeah.
So I think they have a great offensive line. I think that's why I have Jonathan Taylor.
Yeah, even if he is splitting carries, he is going to be the red zone back. And I mean, last year he had just as many guys. I mean, because realistically, how often will Marlon Mack play? 2 years in a row that he's been down due to injury. I mean, he's older now. He has better guys ahead of him. Where does he fit into this offense? Is he going to take maybe 10% of the carries?
Yeah.
I mean,
It's 10% of what carry? It is the whole thing.
yeah, and I know that you have him in the red zone compared to a big back like Jonathan Taylor. So Jonathan Taylor, who finished 4th in standard scoring last year, I mean, I don't think you can have him, outside of the top 10. So I think we're all.
I was more worried about Hines than I was against Mack, but then you still had Mack in there, he's gonna see the field. So
Yeah.
it's a matter of, since we're talking about Taylor right now, I didn't even have him in my top 10. And part of that was because one, I didn't know what the quarterback was gonna look like, didn't know what the offensive line for sure was gonna look like. I mean, they got Eric Fisher, he's got an ACL, so, I mean, they're just enough to where I wasn't a huge Taylor fan last year. I really wasn't because of volume issues, consistency issues. I'm just not a big Colts person, just because they're so up and down. They got 17 tight ends, which one do you put in? They got 6 rookie wide receivers, which one's gonna show up for the day? I just see that, it's like going to an amusement park and you go to a roller coaster and they got 7 roller coasters and they're just the one that kind of does this up and down, but it's a roller coaster. It's not fun, it's not elaborate. Well, somebody's gonna score fairly big that day, but you don't know which one, and so that's why I didn't even put Jonathan Taylor on there. I think he's going overvalued, but I would take him for cheap money. I'm not gonna deny him for my roster, but I'm not gonna go spend, more than $12 on him either. So going into number 5, going into someone that is far more consistent, even though he had injury last year. He was out 4 or 5 games, but you definitely get a little chubby at number 5. I think Nick Chubb has such high end. He's such a big, strong, fast running back. He breaks through the line 1 time a game, and it's 15 points. It's ridiculous of what he can do. Him and Derrick Henry are very similar in nature. It's just Chubb has a little bit more volume issues, just because he does not pass catch. So for any kind of PPR league, Chubb has to be knocked down a couple notches. So he's going to have some share with Kareem Hunt and anybody else that they find to put on the field too, to keep Chubb from wearing down towards the end of the year. So that's going to be interesting. So I definitely had Chubb at 5, and that kind of rolls. You guys can talk about it, but then I had Henry at 4, and that's why, because to me they're very similar. Offenses, run nature type of situations. It's just sheer volume is why I mixed the 2 up, where Chubb was at 5 and Henry was 1 step ahead of him at 4.
I have Chubb at 6, so right around there.
I had Chubb at 7.
Did you have him at 8? Do I hear 8?
Yeah, I didn't. Sorry, I'm cheating. I'm looking at my wide receiver list.
Thinking ahead.
Yes. I don't remember where I had him at.
Was he top 5?
No.
Wow. So I'm the highest on Chubb today.
You're the highest on Chubb today.
I'm
The only
sitting
reason
next
I
to
don't.
Chubb Lover.
The only reason I don't have him in the top 5 is just he's going to share a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And his offense isn't always predictable, just because Baker can be Baker some days and put up 3
Well,
to 10 points.
The thing that I had Chubb last year, and that injury was about as fluke as it gets. I mean, I think it was against the Cowboys, and the O lineman fell on his leg when Chubb was. It was after the play. The O lineman just fell down and on his leg, and I think it was like some meniscus or something. I don't know. It was a strange
I think
injury.
it was in the red zone even.
It was just in the middle of the play. It was just a fluke thing. So his durability is not an issue. His volume, we see Kareem Hunt and we think it's an issue, but Kareem Hunt isn't really the red zone guy. Like they give the guys possessions, from what I noticed last year. So the first 2 series of the games it may be Chubb, then Kareem Hunt may come in to give Chubb a break, then Chubb will come right back in the next series. So I would say it's probably like a 70-30 split or so. But it's not like when they get Kareem to the red zone, here comes Nick Chubb. They do that sometimes, but Nick Chubb sure doesn't come out in the red zone on his possession.
Yeah.
I mean, whose possession do you really think moves the ball better? Nick Chubb's. That's why he gets like 1 or 2 touchdowns a game. The dude is just a monster, and he still got extremely close, or if not at 1,000 yards last year, while missing like 5 games. So the dude is just a beast. You can't go wrong with him.
Yeah, and speaking of that, did anybody have Derrick Henry higher than 4?
I did.
I have number 1.
I had him at 2.
2 and 1. Wow.
I had him at 4.
I'll tell you why I have him at 2. Kind of similar to the quarterback situation with Russell Wilson, but it's opposite. Derrick Henry, we know him as Mr. December. When you're drafting him, are you really drafting him with the thought of, I can't wait for weeks 1 through 10 or 12, however, whenever your playoffs start? No, I want him in the playoffs because we all know he's going to go for 200 yards a game in the playoffs. I mean, I'm putting him. I could almost put him at 1 if Christian McCaffrey wasn't there. But I mean, Derrick Henry, he is the most valuable guy in the fantasy football playoffs every single year. So, number 2, I'm fine with him getting me, 12, 13 points in the regular season. As long as he cranks it back up like he has the past 3 years in the playoffs, I'll take him. I'll spend the money. It's almost an automatic win.
To a point. And again, with having for sure another wide receiver, I think they're going to throw the ball just a little bit more. I mean, it's kind of be inverted to say like the Chiefs. I think that they're going to run the ball more, but I think the Titans are going to try to throw the ball a little bit more. So I think you're going to see a little bit of downplay in volume. Now, will he be more successful because of that? Maybe so, but that's why I didn't have him in the top 3, is because I think there's going to be some sheer volume issues, and I got to get in the playoffs before I can worry about what my players do in the playoffs. So that would be my one big concern there, that if he does start slow, how slow is it? You know?
I understand the volume issues, but for me, it's not so much a worry in the first part of the season, and that's because I looked at his schedule, and I didn't have it on the paper, but I just looked it up, and he has the Cardinals at home, game 1, Seahawks on the road, week 2, so 2 really easy run defenses, and then week 3 is kind of more of a shaky play, and that's the Colts, but they're always going to play the Colts really close. And then they have the Jets and then the Jaguars. So you're basically first 5 weeks you have one hard game.
Right.
So that's not, I don't know if inconsistency and volume is much of a worry first 5 weeks for me, and that's just because he's going to probably get at least 1 if not 2 touchdowns every one of those weeks.
Yeah, it all depends on how big of leads do they have, and did they get the leads through passing, or was it through running? Because say you get in the 4th quarter, yeah, you're going to run Derrick Henry, but do you not run Derrick Henry because you don't want to get him hurt?
Yeah.
I don't. So there's one of those situations there that I had a little bit of rhyme or reason why I put him at 4. I did see that schedule too, and I was like, oh my goodness, he's going to be top heavy this year at the beginning, and then the back end it gets a little harder. So it's like, this is a little questionable, but
In the back end, you're really hoping Derrick Henry stays Derrick Henry, but the ideal championship week he has the Dolphins, and then semifinal he has the 49ers, and so that could either be easy or hard just depending on how the 49ers defense is at that point. Then the quarterfinal is the Steelers, so your quarterfinal semifinal match could be really hard.
yeah. What do you think, Jared? On Henry, where'd you have him?
I had him at number 3.
Number 3?
Yeah.
So, speaking of 3.
Yeah.
I have Kamara. Kamara at 3, sure volume play here. Now obviously their quarterbacks are going to be very questionable, and so are their receivers. Who else they got left? Yeah, so Kamara is going to have to be their go-to. You've seen him where that works out extremely well, and other times where he can't get out of the starting gate either. So that's a tough one, but I just think he's basically the offense that they have left there with the head case of Michael Thomas. None of the other wide receivers are just standing out right at this point. And, there may be a couple running backs that see the field, but they're saying Matt Murray looks horrible right now. He doesn't really have anybody pushing him for PT. So to me, Alvin Kamara is sure volume, but the bad thing why I couldn't push him any higher was because I think their offense is going to be extremely inconsistent and very one-sided of Alvin Kamara. So he's going to get the volume, but he may not get the actual benefit point-wise. You're probably going to have a hard time seeing the 30-point Alvin Kamara this year.
I think in PPR he's going to be a machine.
Yeah.
But standard leagues it may be hard just because of his touchdown rate, it may go down. I mean, he had, 6 touchdowns last year at one game. And, I mean, you're not going to see anything close to that this year. I have him at number 4, so he's still really high up there. But I just don't know that he's going to be quite what we saw last year. But even if it's a step down from that, I mean, he's still going to be elite. So
Yeah.
I would just expect a little bit of a drawback due to all of the mess we have in the Saints organization right now.
I have them at 6, and that's because I don't trust their offense. There's only so long you're going to be able to force feed a guy in that offense. He has Adam Troutman, who's a nobody right now, and then he'll have Taysom Hill, and then after that, you're kind of asking where the ball's going to go.
Well, and in the red zone,
Alvin Kamara.
in the red zone, where does the ball go?
In the red zone, it's where the ball goes, and the question is, are they going to get to the red zone if they don't have an actual wide receiver that's more than the WR4 right now?
Yeah.
So with no Michael Thomas right now on that team, with him always kind of wanting in, always the drama going on. I had Alvin Kamara at 6, like I said, and that's just because I have no faith in the Saints offense.
Well, and another one is Taysom Hill. Even if he's not the starter, we all know he likes to vulture touchdowns. So if they get to the 2-yard line, there's no guarantee that Alvin Kamara will even be in the ball game. Taysom Hill is probably going to get the ball there, and he's either going to throw it or run it in. So.
All right, guys. So everybody's all right with him at 3. I mean, you had him a little bit lower, and I understand why. I'd be hesitant, probably dollar-wise, even though that's kind of counterintuitive, especially in a standard league, to take him much higher than a 4 or 5. But I think 3 is appropriate for especially PPR. Number 2, I think probably all of us, except for you, had Derrick Henry. Everybody else is probably similar. Next top 2 that's remaining on their list is Cook and McCaffrey.
Yeah.
Yep.
Anybody else have them? You had McCaffrey, Henry, and Cook. So
Cook
you had
and
Henry.
CMC.
Yeah. So
Number 2.
does anybody have Cook over McCaffrey? I don't know that that's the case.
No.
Yeah.
I mean, the reason why would probably just be Dalvin's bound to miss at least 1 to 2 games a year. And McCaffrey, if he plays, just the sheer talent he has is just unbelievable.
And how they run the offense
Yeah.
strictly through him.
Yeah.
And, the Vikings have enough other wide receivers and some tight end play. They mix it up a little bit better than what the Panthers do. So that was my main thing. It's a volume, athleticism. If the Panthers are going to score, it's flowing through McCaffrey. He doesn't have Mike Davis chomping at the bit to vulture some of his touchdowns at the end. I don't know that anybody could. I haven't seen a draft where they didn't take McCaffrey first in the entire draft. Has anybody here?
No.
Yeah. So I mean,
Pretty much.
running backs, when you get to the top 4 or 5, it's just a blend of not all of them. But my biggest one was sliding Zeke all the way down. Now, if we want to go to sleepers, the ones that I didn't mention, even though we mentioned it through the cast, was Taylor, and I kind of gave you a reason why. He's not a sleeper. I just say the ones that fell out of my top 10. And Saquon Barkley. Nobody here really mentioned him.
I don't
I have him at 10.
So,
I have no Saquon.
do you have any Saquon?
Yes.
No, 8, I believe, when we look here.
I had him, but then after I made my list, I decided to take him out and replace him with Austin Eckler. So
Yeah, I think the first, if you draft Saquon, don't expect your first 3 weeks to
No.
be normal at all. Maybe even your first 6. It would be interesting to see when their buy is. I didn't look at that. But if it's an early buy, 5 or 6,
Yeah.
maybe. But then you're wasting a lot of money
Mm-hmm.
on a guy that's not going to perform for you right off the bat.
Most drafts he's going either 2nd or 3rd round in the snake right now.
So, I think it's someone, I wouldn't be my RB1 by no means, but I do think he can be.
He's a good mid-season
Yeah.
stash that
Yeah.
could be a huge deal.
I agree with you.
And I don't know
That's
how
a good way to
cheap
put it.
he's gonna go in a draft like ours. I've seen,
Gonna be a lot of leeriness.
yeah, I mean, I've seen snake drafts, the mock drafts I've been in. I mean, he's always been pretty much first round, probably back into the first round.
Yep.
So, I mean, in our draft, if you could get him for 13 or less, just stash him away. Even, if he doesn't hardly do very well, you have him as trade bait. So,
Their biggest issue, their offensive line's horrible.
but and I don't think we'll be able to get him for 13 or less in our draft.
No, it's
So-
by name only.
No, so
Anybody have any big sleepers? I mean, my main one that you think about is like a Mike Davis. He's a name only because he was McCaffrey's backup, and that was the way the offense was designed.
I think-
But he's so volume. There's nobody else.
I think he's gonna be a bust.
There's nobody else there. He's gonna get 20 carries a game no matter what.
Yeah, even if he does, I had him last year for a PPR league, and he's just not talented. I mean, he's like a
He's a block.
He's a 2-3 yard carry guy. I mean, he's a big guy, so down in the red zone they may give it to him, but I mean between the 20s, he's not ever gonna get you more than like 50 or 60 yards a game.
No.
He's
I
gonna
agree.
have to get a touchdown in order to make your a good day.
You know, here's why I like Mike Davis as a sleeper, is because he's gonna be with I think a decent offense. You got Matty Ice,
They'll score points.
and he's not going to be in a huge demand. You go out of the top 10,
They have no
and you just run into committee after committee after committee. I mean,
Yeah.
Pro Football, what I've been shocked with is Josh Jacobs was in the top 10 last year, and now he's
Now he's top
not
20.
even top 20.
I got him in the 3rd round in my snake draft.
So, yeah,
There's times that he's going 5th or 6th right now.
Yeah. so he's not high at all. Why? Well, you got Kenyon Drake there that,
There's people that are taking ETN over.
yeah, so,
I definitely would.
well, there's just not a lot of trust there with
Yeah.
it. So, I mean, let's just look down the list. I mean, I guess you could be a sleeper and say that he's not in a committee, DeAndre Swift, but then you're going,
Nah.
"My God."
Yeah,
I
and
don't
they
know.
have Jamal Williams. I would almost put that as a committee because he's
He's
Yeah.
gonna get some carries.
he even did that with Aaron Jones.
They already announced that DeAndre Swift with the Lions running back, they're just going with a hot hand. So it's just whoever.
That's what they did last year.
But you got, David Montgomery, Miles Sanders, Josh Jacobs,
I would stay away
Raheem
from Morset.
Morset. All those guys are
They're all committee.
If I had to pick one bust out of the whole league that people are high on, I would not touch Sherman with a 10-foot pole, just because. I mean,
Who's
They're
that?
saying how
Trey
talented he
Sermon,
is.
yes. I mean,
Sherman.
I'm not high. I'm
he-
not that high.
he runs like a 4.5. He was nothing impressive, and people are for some reason high. When you know that the 49ers run like a 3 or 4 back committee, I mean,
Every year.
even if a guy gets hurt, we all know some dude from the practice squad is going to come in and get just the same carries.
Yeah,
So
well, I mean, think about your Cardinals, right? You got Chase Edmonds. Well,
James Conner.
now you got James Conner.
No
yeah,
Benjamin.
and
I mean,
the only reason I would own one
who's
of
your O
those.
line back now?
Yeah.
I don't know.
Kyler Murray.
Well,
Yeah.
yeah, the only reason I'd own one of those is if you have Kyler Murray, because you almost have to plug one of those dudes into your flex, but you don't know which
It
one it
does.
is.
Once you get out of the top 10, it's just a black hole of
Yeah.
Committees.
not knowing what you're gonna do. I mean, Miles Gassing.
He's
Who
in the same.
knows?
He's not even a start right now. They're saying.
Yeah. So for my sleepers, I have J.K. Dobbins, but because I think he is in a committee, but he performed last year in one. He wasn't even the lead back. You could say arguably Mark Ingram was the lead back, and when Ingram was hurt, J.K. Dobbins did very, very well.
Gus will be his only threat.
And yeah, so I think he's the only one that's in less of a committee. And since they're so run heavy, I mean, he's going to get the volumes. I bet he gets at least 15 carries a game.
Is Justice Hill still?
Yeah. But
He'll get on the field every once in a while.
I mean, but not nearly as much as Mark Ingram did.
What about? Let's just talk Clyde for a second. You guys are Chiefs. I mean, is he gonna be in a?
Well,
He'll
he's
be
hurt. He's hurt, but here you got Clyde, you got Williams. Thompson actually looked good. He may not even make the team, but then you got Jarek McKinnon. McKinnon's looked world beater this whole preseason. So if Clyde's still a little bit on the fringe, all his volume's gonna go in half for the first 2 or 3 weeks. And then if Williams is having some concussion issues, that's what's been his last thing in training camp in the last game. Then all of a sudden you got McKinnon, who's actually a fairly decent sized back, who can do goal line and he can catch.
Yeah.
And he can run between the tackles. So
Yeah, he did great.
that's to me, you can start seeing some of that play out, even though he's injury prone. You got 3 guys that might be injury prone now that are all about the same value. How do you, in the Chiefs' mind? So now you want to talk about committees? Reed isn't going to care.
Well, and for PPR, I would say Clyde is going to be better than he was last year. I mean, just last preseason game before he got hurt, they were running screen passes. They ran like 2 or 3 screen passes in the same possession.
Yep.
And I've listened to some podcasts and some SiriusXM radio shows where they have him on the air, and all he talks about is how the wide receiver coach flipped to the running back coach, and how they've been working with him a lot on receiving. How it's in the great game plan this year to get him more and more involved in the receiving game.
Yep.
And so, PPR purposes, I would say right outside the top 10. But he's still going to have that committee down at the red zone where, who comes in the red zone? Is it Clyde stays in? Is it McKinnon? Is it Williams? You don't know.
Is it Travis Kelce?
Yeah.
Is it Mike Burton? Burton, because he's a great pass catching fullback,
Mhm.
and they've been using him a lot too. So, yeah, Mahomes. You love having Mahomes because he spreads the ball everywhere. But so how do you pick one guy on his offense that you just go love? That's a tough one.
My last two sleepers, I have Michael Carter, just because he's not really in a committee, and you can't
Tevin
put him.
Coleman's his
And they say Tevin Coleman doesn't look good. So he's a rookie. He had a really good year at North Carolina. He's a good pass catcher. So, but he is in the Jets, so you don't know how that's going to work out. He could be a guy that booms into a pretty viable back.
It's the Jets.
But it's the Jets, and it is the new blood, so it's something that you could at least get excited about.
Yeah. The only boom at
You
the
get excited
Jets
about
is
it.
the sonic boom from the engine failing.
Then the last one I have is Travis Etienne. I think he's going to be a PPR machine. He's one of the best prospects for a running back I've seen in a while.
Yeah.
The dude is just a beast. And if you think about it, they had an amazing running back last year. Why would they pick one in the back end of the first round? Well, they have to have something planned for him. I mean, you don't pick a guy that high just to have him on your team. So if he isn't in the backfield, I think he's going to be on the receiving court somewhere. I mean, he's going to be on the field at all times, I think.
They're going to use him as a slot, and the main thing that I've heard about Etienne is he's not going to be as much of a running back. He's there for comfort level for Trevor Lawrence since he was his running back. So that's just kind of what I heard. It was not he's talented, but it wasn't the first round talent per se. It was the Trevor Lawrence comfort pick.
I think he's going to be a similar version to Alvin Kamara with how they use Alvin Kamara. And I think he could easily shoot up in the top 10. He could bust out.
I don't know
but
about that.
I think he has top 10 potential.
'Cause
If there's anybody that's not in this top 10 that I think could should up,
I
especially
think it's Etienne.
Etienne could easily shoot up.
Well, I would say the same thing about Robinson, though.
Well, Robinson, I think they're going to go a Mark Ingram, Alvin Kamara, kind of pair with that. I mean, you got to think about it.
Just PPR.
Well, I mean, he's not going to be as valuable in standard, obviously, but PPR, he's going to be the most valuable.
Now, to me, the reason he's not as valuable is because he plays for the Jaguars, and they're not probably going to win more than 2 games.
Well, and you got to think who's the Jaguars wide receiver? Laviska Shenault,
They have
DJ
about-
Chark.
They have like
Marvin Jones.
And none of them-
Marvin Jones is going to
Well,
be.
I mean, who's what? He's a wide receiver 3 on most teams. I mean, so who's going to get the ball in the receiving court? It's got to be Etienne.
nobody.
That's if they
because
actually
Lawrence
make
is going to
first
throw interceptions.
They'll make first downs.
He won't even be in top 15 in standard running back.
Oh, I would make a steak dinner bet on that one.
I'm in
When
on
you
that.
said
I'm in on that.
easily be in the top 10, I don't.
I said he could easily be in the
I'll
top
say
10.
it won't be in the top 15. I got steak dinner. I'll throw in shrimp on that one.
Well, I'll put it all in there. You guys
I'm
have-
all in. Steak dinner for the entire day here.
No, everybody listening to this, I'll provide the steak dinner.
Out of my freezer.
Yeah, damn right you will. But I'm telling you, Travis Etienne. I was gonna put him in at the very end of the top 10, but I decided that you leave him out as a
You
sleeper.
decided
He's
to
well known.
use your
He's
head.
not well known. No, Travis Etienne is gonna be good.
Yeah. Well, you heard it here first, folks, on the Fantasy Football Disciples. Draft Travis Etienne #1 on your snake drafts.
Don't send
He
me.
could easily be there.
A guy I was
Don't send me
listening
your
to the other
Kleenexes.
day, Sirius XM,
Yeah.
said that he could see him going in the top 5 for PPR next year. Travis Etienne.
And we'd like to remember that he is an illegal adult now, so any issues that you have with this, it's on him.
Hey, well, thanks for joining us here at the Fantasy Football Disciples as we break down our pre-draft special on the running backs. top 10, and some sleepers.
And
Some crazy sleepers, dark horses. Thanks for joining us again. As always, peace.
black stallions.
He's not even that big of a sleeper. Everybody knows him.
Everybody knows him. Everybody knows Norm from Cheers too, though.
No,